What's good, and welcome to the very first episode of 90 Day Our Way, a tribute to the greatest reality series on TV today. Welcome in, everybody. My name is Jonathan Coachman. You can call me the coach. And to do this podcast, I had to bring in the most normal, stable, well-thought-out mind that I know. So please welcome to the show my partner, Cody Merrow, but I like to call him the Kid. Kid, welcome to the show.
Coach, happy to be here. Happy to discuss what has slowly become my most addicting TV show today.
Well, I'm quite sure you've been in the podcast world, the combat podcast world. I'm quite sure that you never thought in a million years that you would do a podcast dedicated to the 90 Day Fiance franchise. Am I wrong?
You are not wrong.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. I want to explain to everybody why we're doing the podcast, because this really kind of comes out of left field. This is not in our wheelhouse. We're sports guys. We've been in sports for a long time, me quite a bit longer than you, but this is my passion. Reality TV is my passion, and this is the greatest reality TV show that there has. And there's so many different franchises within the franchise, as I like to call it. So 90 Day Fiance is a show for those people who are new, that are just watching this for the very first time, like us doing it for the first time, is a show about Americans who try to date people from different countries and the whole process that goes into bringing them here, allowing them to stay here. And that became such a positive franchise that now there is 90 Day the other way, 90 Day before the 90 days, 90 Day happily ever after, 90 Day quarantine. So you get to the point that there are a lot of different couples. They show up on all these different franchises, and we will have a fun, lighthearted discussion as we break down the episodes every single week. I think we're going to have a lot of fun, but also I think we can do some really positive things, some good dialogue about cultures, the things that these people go into. When you started researching this show, is it crazier or not as crazy as what you thought?
So I think that's a very interesting question, because we're in 2020. I don't think much surprises me now. The things we see on the internet are absolutely asinine and crazy. And to see it in this kind of format where these people are so genuinely serious. This is their life at the moment. This is the only thing that they want. They want to be American citizens. They want to find love. So to answer your question, I am shocked at how much I actually enjoy it, because at first you hear, this guy who sits ringside, who sits on the driving range and talks about sports, wants me to watch a TLC show about marriage. And I thought, man, I don't know what the hell I'm getting myself into. But I threw on an episode. I had to give you the benefit of the doubt. And man, I was in stitches. I was laughing. Right? I was saying, what the hell, out loud over and over. My dog must have thought I was crazy.
Well, there's also a show, if people really want to catch up and see what normal people think about the unnormalcy of the show, is 90 Day Fiance Pillow Talk, which a lot of networks are doing it now, where you have former cast members who are watching the current season and commenting from their couch. And my goal is to make this podcast so big that you and I become cast members on Pillow Talk without ever being on 90 Day Fiance. Unless you decide that we can do a little experiment and we try to find you, how about we find me, a fiance from a different country as part of this podcast? I mean, that's down the road. I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to do it.
Well, hey,
all right.
As Rihanna says, you can find love in a hopeless place. But I think that's well said, Coach. I think we bring a great balance of young and old to the table with different experiences. Obviously, we come from much different backgrounds, but I think we're going to have a great time discussing a topic that everyone has something to say about: love. Now, enough chit-chat. We know why everyone's tuned in. Let's not waste any more of their precious time. Let's get to the main event.
All right, so to explain what the main event is, this is going to be the segment every single week that is dedicated to the biggest storyline in the episode or the top 2 if there's something really, really good. And for anybody that has watched the tell-all from this last Sunday, and that's the episode that we are going to break down in this podcast, we're at the end of the season of 90-day The Other Way tell-all. And this is when an American goes to a different country, spends time with their soulmate, and then tries to pursue the relationship further. And the couple that was absolutely at the top of my list is David and Lana. And Cody, I'm telling you what, that when I think of David, and I think of everything that he's gone through, I'm sad for him, but I'm also envious of him. We're talking about a 60-some-year-old man that went on these dating sites, we thought 7 years ago. He's been dating Lana, a beautiful blonde woman, for 7 years. He's traveled to the Ukraine 5 times. The first 4 times, she didn't even show up. She didn't even have the audacity to show up. And her excuses were like, I'm watching my little brother, I don't feel well, and he just traveled halfway around the world to meet her. So most normal people would have long been gone. But we find out in the tell-all, and I want to get your reaction to this, that he's been going to the Ukraine since 1995. He has spent almost $300,000 on these websites that you pay by the minute to talk to these girls. And if you bring up the fact that she's not real, or she wasn't real, or their relationship wasn't real, he gets very defensive, very indignant. And on the tell-all this week, he acted the same. And shock of shocks, Lana did not show up. Were you surprised that Lana didn't show up, even though she finally showed up in the final 2 episodes and they got engaged, which shocked the entire 90-Day Fiance world?
I was not shocked. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I don't think there's a phrase for fool me 6 times. This man has spent all of my life, practically, trying to go to the Ukraine and meet up with these women. I was born in 1993. By the time I was 20 years old, this man had already been pawning for almost 2 decades to try and get with these women overseas. And what I don't understand is David is obviously well off. He has money. He can spend money to talk to people. We know that there are cheaper ways to have companionship if you want to pay for it. But why can't he find love in America? He seems to be successful. He's, albeit, a very creepy dude. But what do you think about that? Why do you think he has this almost addiction towards the rejection or towards the outside normalcy reactions that he has?
Well, I think that dating now in the United States is very, very difficult because dating apps have become the new normal. And you don't just go out to a bar or you go to a restaurant and you meet somebody. I think that when you've been rejected so many times, and I don't say rejected as a bad thing or taking a knock at David, it's just the way things are. And a lot of times if you keep trying, everybody wants to have a relationship. Nobody likes to be single. At least I don't know anybody that stands up and says, you know what, I would love to be single. Those type of people live in the mountains somewhere. Everybody wants that interaction. So I'm envious that he kept going and kept going and kept going. But some of the things that come out of his mouth are so ridiculous. For instance, he gave her an iPhone so that they wouldn't have to talk on the app anymore or the website. And 2 things, he wouldn't have to pay for the website anymore, and they could talk on FaceTime without it costing a lot. She took the iPhone and then claimed she couldn't use it because her fingernails were too long. Classic. So when he brought that up on the show, first of all, I was on the ground laughing. And then my man Easy Ed, who's my favorite character on the entire franchise, Ed starts bashing David, saying, you got scammed. She went after you. And David, of course, says, you know nothing. He threatens to shut the computer and says, I'll leave it till Ed's gone. Well, Ed was going nowhere because Ed's the greatest. And we'll get to Ed later in the podcast. But when I look at this now, and I look at this relationship, and I think, where is it going, or is it already over? I believe that she was paid to show up. I believe that producers found her, talked her into showing up, and talked her into doing those few things like bowling or whatever they were going to do, because it wouldn't have been a fun ending or an interesting ending if she never would have shown up. You know what I mean? So it made for better episodes. It made for better talk like you and I are doing right now, for her to show up and then to ghost him. And I found this was amazing. When he was asked on Tell All, are you guys together? He says no. He was asked, are you guys still engaged? He said yes. How are you both? How are you both? The man lives in a delusional world. And I feel bad for him because he wants so badly to have her in the United States. He wants so badly to be married. But at this point, after 7 years, it has to be over, right? It has to be.
Never even began. That's what I don't understand.
I found it hilarious in the episode before the Tell All. And he was at the airport. He was in his feels. And the night before he left, she told him, I can't hang out with you because I'm babysitting my little brother or cousin. And he traveled to Ukraine. So he's spending the last night in his hotel. And he says, I got to leave for the airport like at 4 a.m. She actually showed up to go to the airport with him, which shocked me, by the way. And when they get to the airport, he is doing that awkward, ugly hug that he has with the long coat that he wears. And he turns around and the music goes and he comes back and he gets down on one knee and he asks her to marry him. And you see all these people that are looking, and they were all thinking what you and I were thinking. What the hell is this guy doing at 5 o'clock in the morning, asking a woman to marry him in the middle of this crazy Russian airport? And it just, the whole entire thing makes me laugh. It makes me sad for him a little bit. But at some point, you've got to say, this was never real. And you've got to move on. And at this point, I think everybody with 90 Day Fiance, all the fans, it's a train wreck that you can't just look away from.
Well, I'll tell you, the thing that the show didn't give him and the thing that 90 Day Our Way will give him is an opportunity to spend that money in a great way. So, hey, David, if you're watching, write us a check.
We'll take $50K and we'll date you online just like she did. And to put a bow on this, he hired a private investigator. And what should have been the biggest red flag that he could ever have, the private investigator comes back and he says, Lana's on 8 of these websites. Not 1, not 2, 8. And she's doing this with a lot of different men. What did David say? Hey, she's been on these websites for years. That's where her friends are. If she didn't have these friends, she wouldn't have any friends. And you just put your head in your hands. You're like, what in the world is he talking about? Oh, this is how she makes her living. She scams guys across the world. And it's crazy to me. But that's why David and Lana, they are my number one in our main event. But Cody, there was a very, very close number 2. Baby girl Lisa and Usman. Nigeria's own rapper extraordinaire. He's a huge star in his country. And like a lot of these relationships, there's a big age gap. So she's in her 50s. And he is, I think, 29 or 30, maybe not even 30 yet. And this, to me, is the most volatile, craziest, funniest relationship on the entire franchise. Because this woman literally traveled to Nigeria to date this man. And he wrote a song for her. He performed it at a nightclub for her. And all of his little fans, teeny bopper fans are singing it. And then they look over and they see this woman, blonde, white, amid all of these very dark Nigerians, sticking out like a sore thumb and just dancing. If we were allowed to play the music, we would right now, because it's actually not a bad song. It's not a bad song. I've sang it many, many times in the shower. However, the entire thought process that this man could be in love with this woman, who, by the way, on the tell-all, admitted that over the years, she has dealt with 300 different men that she calls Yahoo boys per year. That she knows how these scammers work. She knows how they get you in and then they blackmail you and make you give them money so you don't embarrass them. So all of these different things go into this relationship, and it's hilarious because you can see right away. And how many people have you had in your life, Cody, that you look at and you say, if they could just change how they act, they would have so many more people that would want to be around them. When I look at Lisa, that's what I think. She's mean to everybody. She yells at everybody. And yet, Usman is still there every single step of the way. My question to you is, why? Why does he stay?
I mean, I think the answer is green. It's a card. He thinks, I believe, that his stardom is limited because he's in Nigeria. I think in his head, he believes that he is a star because he has all of these people fawning over him. He has the attention in his own country. He has people that are interested in him. And I think in his messed up psyche, he believes that he can be bigger. He believes that what it takes is to him to get to America and really get to superstardom.
But I'm glad you said that, because here's where that thought process, which was the same that I had, doesn't make any sense. On this episode, on the tell-all, Sean Robinson, the host, who I think does a good job of navigating all the different people, especially when it's done virtually. It's so hard to have to listen and think. And Usman said, I have no desire. I have no I'm not even thinking about moving to the United States. And I thought to myself for a second, but that was the whole point. The whole point was to move to the United States to grow his career. So then, of course, Lisa was like, well, we've talked about it. And because we fight so much, right now everything is very rocky. So I actually wrote down some quotes. I wrote them down, some quotes from baby girl Lisa that she said on the show that just made me laugh. She said, we didn't break up. We just blocked each other. They're already married. They got married in his country on the very first trip. Who blocks their husband from social media? Apparently, baby girl Lisa does. She said, I'm going to hang up because all the BS coming out of fans' mouths. So she always threatens to hang up the phone because she doesn't want to talk about these fans. One particular fan that Usman said, if I don't respond to my fans, it hurts my career. How many wives do you know that if their husband says to them, hey, sweetheart, the reason I was texting this woman that I love her is because she has 2.3 million followers and she can help my career? I would say 0 wives would be cool with that. Baby girl Lisa is not cool with that. And then the funniest thing on the tell-all is when Ed stuck up for Usman, and he said that, I don't know if you saw how far back you watched, but she had to buy a goat for Usman's mother to try to get her to give them their blessing. Okay, that was part of the ritual, is buying a goat, which was hilarious to watch them pick out a goat, by the way. And Ed jumps in and goes, Usman, I have so much respect for you. She treated you like a goat. And Lisa jumps in and goes, you're the goat. You're the goat. You're the goat. Now, in the United States, we'd be talking about Michael Jordan. But on this particular show, she was calling Ed a goat. Only in 90 Day Fiance can you call somebody a goat, and it doesn't mean that you're the greatest of all time. And at this point, we don't know what their future holds, but we will talk about that in our Back to the Future segment as we wrap up the show a little bit later. But those two topics, that was our main event.
Welcome back to 90 Day Our Way. The next segment we want to bring to you guys is something near and dear to Coach and I's heart. So let's get right into it. The first couple I want to get your opinion on, Coach, is Ash and Avery. Now, these two live on completely different continents. They both have children of their own, and Ash doesn't seem to know what being in a relationship means. So tell me, Ash and Avery, real or fake?
It's a great question. And you could look at all these duos, relationships, couples, and you can automatically say fake, 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 fake. But we're not lazy here at 90 Day Our Way. We like to do our research. We like to really delve deep into everything that goes into these relationships and everything that comes out of them. In your question, you pointed out something very specific, that Ash, who is a relationship expert in Australia, and they actually showed him doing a seminar where probably 10 women showed up in a hotel room, And I'm telling you, this was the most staged relationship expert seminar I've ever seen. It just was. So Avery came from the United States, and they're a really good-looking couple. Avery's very pretty. Ash is very pretty, like darker skin. He comes from a secluded part of Australia, so he's technically Australian, but that's not where his passport is from, which is a very important part of their story. So the thing I love about the 90 Day Fiance producers is they bury what really could be a big part of the story until later in the season. For instance, if you're going to Australia, Cody, and you've got 2 children here, and the person you're dating there has a child, to me, it's almost impossible for that to work because one of you got to make that decision. So Ash told Avery while they were talking, oh, my baby mama is cool with me bringing my son to the United States. That absolutely was not the case until Avery got there. And then she requested a sit down with the mother of Ash's son. So Ash immediately, you can see him glaze over. And he didn't want them to meet. They did meet, and she got a lot of clarity. And I'm on Avery's side of this because on the show, as I was thinking about the podcast, Sean Robinson, the host, says, so Avery, do you think that Ash is real or fake? I said, you can't write this. You can't make this up. And her response was, and I quote, I think Ash is worried about his self-image. And then his actions try to protect that. Every time that he answers a question, Cody, it's very analytical, and he's the king of not actually answering the question. So, for instance, if she says to him, do you really think that you'll be able to move with your son within the next year or two? His response would be, that's a very good question, and I'm glad you asked it. And it's certainly a topic that we need to explore very, very soon as I can really think about it. Okay? And that's a standard Ash answer. He doesn't answer anything. So you understand her frustration, and you understand why it absolutely drives her nuts. And ultimately, right now, they're not together because he lied over and over and over and over. So to answer the question, is this relationship real or fake, doesn't answer the question. I think Ash is fake. He's been fake. And Avery deserves something so much better than, that's a very good question. And I'm glad you asked. Next.
Well, I don't have anything to add to that. I can't help but agree with you. I thought one of the most interesting parts about the tell-all was when the other castmates started to involve themselves with this so-called relationship expert. Why is the relationship expert needing relationship help from people who have no idea about relationships?
I think that he's potentially the worst relationship expert in the history of the world. Not Australia. Anywhere. Because the questions these women would ask him, he didn't have an answer for. And the ones he did were very, very male, chauvinistic answers. And Avery's face was like, wait a second, this is the man that I'm in love with? This is the man that I'm planning on moving to Australia potentially? And then we find out she's got 2 kids. So to me, that's a bigger roadblock than anything else, is why would you lie about bringing your son? And then they said, well, maybe I can travel every 3 months back to see him. I've got 2 kids. Are you kidding me right now? You would give up your children to move and then see them 2 times a year, 3 times a year? In the world that we're living in right now, I would never do that. And clearly, Ash wouldn't either because he was lying to her. So to me, she's got to move on. And this to me was nothing more than a fake. And I think he wanted attention for his business. And the attention that he got was not good. I think it backfired on him quite a bit.
I agree. I think there's just such a serious amount of narcissism in their relationship on both sides. But maybe that's why it works. Crazy loves crazy.
Or maybe that's why it didn't work. Because to me, there's a lot of, that's a word we're going to use a lot of, is a narcissistic, because you see a lot of times, and maybe this is the underlying philosophy on why these people go after mates from other countries, because they can control them to a certain extent. Because if you mess up, then you don't get to come to the United States. And a lot of these storylines, and you're going to see as we talk every single week, there's a lot of, I'm holding this opportunity over your head so that you behave. And in any relationship, right, you can't do that. I don't care where you're from. I don't care where you want to live. You've got to be equal. And you've got to treat each other equal, or it's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. Which brings us to our next real or fake couple, Tom and Darcy. Now, Tom and Darcy, speaking of narcissism, Tom is this highfalutin, very egotistical person from London, England. He's from England. Darcy is a twin. She's 45 years old. Her twin is identical, and they are two women that love. They love being in relationships. The twin sister has been engaged to a guy from another country for 4 years. Darcy has been an absolute mess on 90 Day Fiance for several years. She's dated 2 different guys during her time on the show. 2! But Tom is the ultimate slide into your DMs. And what really got me and why he falls in the real or fake segment of the show this week is the last episode of this season. He asked Darcy to meet him in New York City. And when he showed up, I thought it was going to be to try to reconcile. She actually brought her luggage with her. She was planning on staying for the weekend. And he walks in and proceeds to insult her, tell her that she had gained weight, and tell her that he had met another woman in London at a fashion show and that he was very happy dating this woman from Toronto. So I thought to myself, why in the world would he even show up if that's all he's going to do was insult her, right? And I felt bad for Darcy because I've seen women like her a lot, and I like women like her. They dive in head first. They love. They want to be with somebody, and they want to support somebody so much. And when somebody like Tom insults her and just makes her look stupid, I have a problem with that. And I like to stand up for those kind of women. You know what I mean? And to me, Tom has been nothing but fake every single step of the way. What did you think about Tom?
So I think the point that you made is really what makes me think that it's fake, because what reasonable answer would he have to the question, why did you go to New York after you broke up? Mm-hmm. There's no logic behind that. None. If he is so happy, did he do it to rub it in her face? And if so, couldn't he just done that online? You know, what kind of reality does he live in where he can just say, oh, you know what? I'm going to go get some revenge. Let me head to the airport and fly to New York City.
Well, he tried to make himself look better on the tell-all when he was asked. He said, I didn't know what I wanted. I really didn't. I went there hoping to find out what I was looking for. Well, you had to know that Darcy, who every single step of the way is all in. It doesn't take much for her to be all in. He had to know that she thought they were going to get back together. And what makes him a bigger slime ball is we find out during the show that he slid into the DMs of Avery and he called Ash to ask them if they were broken up. What kind of oh my gosh. It's almost like the 90 Day Fiance crew cast is like the Bachelor Nation, right? It's like all of a sudden you got all these people that are involved in the show. They talk to each other. They call each other. And Ash even said that he was upset. He said it was offensive, and I don't know why Tom was calling me. The kicker was we also found out that he had talked to baby girl Lisa, and he had called her beautiful. He had called her pretty. And he admitted to it. And so 2 other women sitting on that set virtually, he had also tried to slide into their DMs and talk to them. So for me, Tom's got to go, and we need to find some real men for Darcy. That's what I think. Fake.
And that has been Real or Fake on the 90 Day Our Way podcast.
Okay, I've been looking forward to this the entire show. A new segment that we call Come On! I think it's pretty self-explanatory, right?
I agree.
Okay, now the face of this franchise, the face of memes all over the world is my man, Easy Ed. Ed is about 5'2", a big old thick neck, and he's got a sharp mouth. He's funny. And the reason he was on this show, Cody, is he's 54 years old. He was dating again, we always say dating because they haven't seen each other before this show. They've only been talking online. So he was talking to a 23-year-old Philippine young woman who has a child named Rose. Very, very, very sweet. And Easy Ed, every single step of the way, stepped in it. And when I say he stepped in it, he stepped in it. I want all the women who are watching right now to try to imagine if a man did this to you and said these things to you, how you would react. All right. Are you ready, Cody?
Ready when you are.
Okay. So when he landed in the Philippines, the very first time, they were sitting at a restaurant. They were sitting, talking. They have to use the translation app. She speaks a little bit of English, not very much. Very, very sweet girl. And he hands her an STD test right off the jump. She doesn't understand what it was. So she's completely offended because basically he's telling her, I think you've been with all these guys and I want to make sure. Now, in real life, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a way of presenting it, right? You should say, I did one. Would you be willing to do one as well, right? Put it on yourself. He didn't do that. She's offended from the jump. Number 2, he wakes up after the 1 or 2 nights and he says, hey, your legs are very hairy. You don't shave them. They're a lot like mine. I'm guessing, Cody, there's not a woman on the planet that has legs like Ed's. I don't think there's one. So, of course, she looks at him and she's offended again. And the funniest part of this whole show is she'll say something to him when she insults him in her language. Mm-hmm. And he has no idea what she says, right? So the next thing, it makes me laugh every time I think about it. She has an ulcer that causes her to have bad breath, okay? But instead of asking her about it, he just buys her a new toothpaste and new toothbrush. He hands it to her and says, you have breath that is not pretty. And she looks at it, she's dumbfounded and completely offended. So she gets up, she walks to the bathroom, and in her own language, she says, you're ugly. And you see it written on the screen, but he doesn't know what she says. So he looks at the camera guys and he goes, I love you. She says, you're ugly again. And he goes, is that I love you? I hope it's I love you. And she, oh my God, it's so funny when she just goes, you're ugly, or you're fat, or whatever, because she's so offended of what he just said to her. And I don't blame her. Yeah. I don't blame her for being offended. There's ways of doing it and being respectful. It doesn't stop there. On the tell-all, right? You'd think that'd be enough. On the tell-all, she's so upset, she asked for a translator so she can make sure and get her points across. And she basically tells everybody that in the last 3 months, he tried to get back together with her. He claims he didn't. He brought the receipts, but she claims that he asked her to be in a sex video. And what she meant by that was he says, I will pay you money on a FaceTime call for you to take off your clothes. After all of those things that he already asked her to do, she's not attracted to him anymore because of those things. And then he has the audacity in February around Valentine's Day to ask for a Valentine's Day present of her taking her clothes off. That was it for me. And I said, you know what? This is the very first recipient of the 90-Day Our Way podcast. Come on, Ed. Be better than that.
Come on, Ed. The thing that got me to say come on the most was that he brought the receipts. My man was sitting there on the Zoom call with his phone out, text as massive as could be, scrolling through. He had the receipts. And the interesting part to me about the tell-all, and tell me what you think about this. So she was so worked up that she needed the translator, right? But then this little piece of story comes in where she had started to date a woman after they broke up. Now, yes. My theory, and I want to know what you think about this, is that the translator was the woman that she was dating.
Wow. That's interesting. The reason I don't think you're right is because the translator's voice sounded much older. To me, it sounded older. Now, not that she can't date an older woman like she did with Ed, but I just don't think that was the case. But it's an interesting theory. But she admitted to dating the woman. She didn't deny it. And when asked, she said, I was trying to move on from Ed, which all of us would have done the same thing. Who was going to wait around for Ed after he does that to you, right? And she was like, liar, liar, liar. I was trying to move on. I was trying to move on with my life. I do a great Rose impression. And everybody else on the tell-all, they adore her. She's such a sweet person. She's so nice. But the kicker, and what really was at the basis for this not working out, was she wants 2 more kids. She was very, very honest about that. He doesn't even tell her till he gets there, I want no more children. I have a daughter, and that's it. And that to me was the saddest thing, because even on the tell-all, he said he was willing for a second time to give up the relationship with his daughter.
Yeah.
And then right after that, the daughter comes on the tell-all in tears. She's devastated. What daughter would ever want to hear that their father was willing to give them up for a relationship that clearly was never going to work? To his credit, Cody, he apologized. He goes, that's not what I meant the second time, because he already lost her the first time. And he's like, I didn't mean it like that. He said, I was willing to because of love, and love makes you do crazy things. Clearly, because that's what this show is based on, is people doing crazy things for love. And Ed is just, he's a great character. And there's a new show coming up called B90 Strikes Back. And I think Ed's going to be the star, because social media and people, they crush him. And they've been crushing him for all the stupid things he did to Rose during the season. I can't wait to break down those episodes in a couple of weeks, because Ed, I like him. And I think he has good intentions. He just has horrible tact. He doesn't know how to put anything.
Now, Coach, I'm going to reach for a cheap one here. It's crazy to me that someone who looks like Ed is not afraid to stick their neck out. Now, someone who was a little fearful to stick her neck out, or maybe other things, was Steph. Now, she plays off like she's this free spirit. She's all about being open and free with herself on the internet, and obviously fill in the blanks there for everyone at home. But the second she arrived, it was almost like she was the complete opposite. You know, a little prudish, a little not willing to be that online persona. Now, I want to hear from you. What did you think about that? And why is this in our Come On segment?
When I think of Erica, who was the Australian girlfriend that Stephanie flew to see, and Stephanie still had not come out to her mother yet. She's bisexual, and so is Erica. And what we didn't realize when the season started is that Steph has so many insecurities. There's so many things that trigger her, that Erica would still hang out with people she had dated. That was a trigger. She still would have the dating websites on their apps on her phone. That was a trigger. And every time Stephanie would get upset, she would throw something and she would storm out. She can't have an adult conversation and say, this is why I'm feeling this way. She also has a very significant illness that it's dangerous for her to go anywhere for long periods of time. She's got to have this equipment to help her breathe. It's a very serious situation. And her friends on the tell-all accused Erica of not being open to that, not studying her illness, not understanding what she has to go through on a daily basis. Erica was blindsided every single step of the way. How Steph makes her living is doing provocative videos online. So if you're dating somebody like that and you're seeing this content, you would assume when she flies to Australia to see you for 3 weeks that you're going to have some kind of physical intimacy, and she's going to be a lot more receptive than, I don't think we should hug, I don't think we should hold hands, I think we should sleep in separate beds until I feel comfortable. Wait a second. You're willing to tell dudes every single day that you're willing to do that with them. And I understand everybody's got to earn their paycheck different ways. I get it. But when you show yourself as one person and you show up and you're a completely different person, I mean, come on. Come on! You got to be better than that.
Well, and I think a point that you bring up that is maybe not worth diving into now, but something that we're obviously going to continue to touch on as the series goes on, is the type of mental space you have to be in, right, to be doing that, is one that is attention wanting. It's you don't end up in that profession, you know, for lack of a better word, if you don't like the attention. And so you should know that if that is the person that you're going to choose to be with or date, that is going to come with it. That person isn't just going to become unselfish and not liking of attention. So it's one of those things where if you're going to love that person, you have to love them for the things you don't like, and you have to love them for the things you do like. And obviously here, there was a huge disconnect.
Oh, a huge disconnect. And I thought Erica kind of wrapped it up brilliantly when she was asked by Sean Robinson, is there a future? Is there a way that you would want to stay in Steph's life? She didn't even blink an eye. She goes, absolutely not. I mean, she was over it. She tried every single step of the way to make it work, to make Steph feel comfortable. She took her on adventures. They did fun things. And Steph just couldn't handle it. She's not the type of person that this show or these type of relationships are for. And for that reason, all we can say to Steph right now is, come on.
Coach, we're almost there. We're almost to the end of our very first episode. And we've done a lot of looking back. We've done a lot of looking towards the past and what has happened. But what I want to do in this next segment, let's look towards the future. So I want to go back to the future with some rapid fire topics for you, starting off with Tom and Darcy.
Cody, when I think of what the future might hold, these are two people that can't help themselves. They love the attention. They love what this franchise has done for them. Their 15 seconds of fame, they keep stretching it out. But I think we've reached the end for Tom, because when you DM 2 or 3 other people in the same season, that means you're done. For me, this couple, no future. They're going to go back to where they started.
Now, the next couple, it looked like they had a future. I thought they had a future. Before quarantine, they thought they had a future. But what does the future hold for Ash and Avery?
I think Avery has shown that she's really solid. I think she's going to get a lot of attention here in the United States. I hope she can find a guy here in the United States, because Ash is not the guy. You can't have a guy that speaks in metaphors, gives you answers in code, and does all the things that he did to try to manipulate her. And she's way too smart for that. And we saw that. So for me, this relationship is going to go the same way of Tom and Darcy, back to where they came from.
Moving swiftly on down to our favorite Nigerian pop star. What do you think the future holds for baby girl Lisa and Usman?
Baby girl, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Man, I hope that their dysfunction continues to function for this franchise. The beautiful part about these franchises is that you can show up on all the different ones, depending on where you're at in your relationship. So it's not like we've seen the last of them, because she still said very coyly that they're discussing her moving to Nigeria full time. That means we're going to be fighting about it for the next year. And I'm in it for the fight between Usman and baby girl Lisa, because the fights are good. They're legit. She can talk. She can cut. She is funny. And so I'm all in for more of these two in the future. Absolutely.
I will consider it a personal failure for both of us if we don't get baby girl Lisa on this show.
Done. I'm already working on it.
Well, the last couple I want to get to before we head on out is David and Lana. What does the future look like for them?
This is where the season began, and it's where it ends for us, because you're talking about a man who has chased after this idea of what Lana is, this idea what this beautiful blonde woman is, and sadly, I think they've reached the end. When you can answer the question, we're not together, but we're still engaged, that means you don't even know what's going on. She showed up enough. If you don't show up for the reunion, when clearly, and I did my research, they pay a lot of these cast members to show up, especially the Americans, but they can't pay the foreign cast members for the episodes. But there's ways of getting them money, right? The fact that she didn't show up tells me she wasn't offered any money, and she's over. And she's on to the next guy on the pay website. And what I would love to see is David continue on in the franchise and try to date normally. But when you're 61 or 62 years old, at that point, it's tough. It's not cute dating when you're 62. It's just not cute. But at the same time, we shouldn't stop. Just because we're at a certain age does not mean we shouldn't want companionship. But these two, they've entertained us. The elusiveness entertained us. And sadly for David, I think it's over. And I think we've seen the last of Lana, and we'll never see her face on our TV screen, sadly, ever again. But David, we wish you the best of luck.
Well, Coach, we're here at the end of episode 1, and I don't want you to give more free ideas to TLC like that one that you just dropped. So what I want you to do is look ahead, tell our fans what they can expect from our show moving forward and on next week's episode.
And we'd like to call this in TV a little bit of a tease. So next week, we're going to start breaking down the first 2 episodes, brand new season of 90 Day the Other Way. And among other storylines, we're going to be talking about a 61, nearly 62-year-old woman who is meeting with a financial advisor to cash out her Social Security benefits early so she can move to India and marry her 30-year-old fiance, who is in the middle of getting a divorce but has to pay his father-in-law $20,000 to get out of the marriage but doesn't have a job. So she's going to support them on $600 a month. That's the main storyline. Chew on that, and we'll get all into it next week right here. And tell a friend, subscribe wherever you're watching it. Let's build this audience one person at a time. It's a space for positivity. It's a space for fun. And it's a space just for us to talk about our favorite reality show, 90 Day Fiance. Cody, you're all in. You're all in.
As all in as I can be. I'm excited for this next episode.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us for episode number 1. Thanks. We love doing it. For Coach, me, and the kid, you, this has been 90 Day Our Way. We'll see you next week.